bad.
What is up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo Verendez, also known as Ricky Verendez for my American fans. And another great episode. I've had a bunch of really great episodes recently. I had Thomas Drake recently, the NSA whistleblower, Justin Wren, who is the Bellator fighter, also fought in the UFC, more recently known for Fighting for the Forgotten, where he's basically trying to raise money to help the Pygmy people that he met in the Congo. And just amazing, just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. The work that he's putting into this journey, and just he has the biggest heart. I mean, you just listen to any episode, any interview he's done on any episode of the Joe Rogan podcast or the episode on the Ripple Effect podcast where he talks about his journey and his motivations. It's just really inspiring. It really makes you feel good that there's still good-hearted people who are willing to really sacrifice a lot to help others. And also recently, Matthew Valentis, who was the executive producer of A Open Secret, a documentary about exposing the pedophilia problem in Hollywood. And coming up, I have a great conversation because I already recorded it, so I know it's coming up, with James Corbett, Vinny, and I, which is part 2 of our last conversation we did. If you want to check out the conversation I had with Vinny Cognito and James Corbett on our last Ripple Effect podcast, check that out. Then check out our new one because it's a great conversation too. So I think that's it. I've been feeling like shit lately, so hopefully it hasn't affected the shows too much. For some reason, I have like this stomach flu / food poisoning that just seems to go away in a day or two and then comes back and then goes away, and caffeine triggers it, and all weird things are triggering it, and I haven't really figured out what the hell's going on. I've been taking some enzymes and probiotics and kombucha and trying to figure out how the hell I fix my stomach, because something is definitely not right and hasn't been right for a couple weeks now. And I've had these random days where I just can't eat anything and I'm vomiting my brains out. Not to discuss you guys, sorry, but just trying to be honest. But it's hopefully it doesn't have too big of an effect on the show. This show I did feel not that great, so luckily Will is super well spoken and very intelligent and did a great job of keeping the conversation going. So hopefully I don't sound any dumber than I usually do, and it's just dumb enough that you guys can tolerate it and you guys enjoy the show. But hopefully I figure this thing out, because I have a bunch of shows coming up, and I want to make sure I feel good for them, because it's hard to think when you feel nauseous and you feel sick. So with that said, remember to subscribe to us on YouTube. Remember to share the show, which is super important. Get these conversations out there. If you feel like this episode or any episode is worth sharing and it is important, please share it, tweet it, post episode artwork on your Instagram page. Do whatever it takes to help get these conversations out there. Also support the guests. I always put links to the guests' websites and their social media in the show notes, so check that out. Remember to rate the show. I think it helps with people finding the show, so please do that. And verbally, just word of mouth, that always helps too. So do that. And I think that's it. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. What's up, Will?
How's it going, Ricky?
Hey, thanks for being with me. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for allowing me to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about the internet, is that you get to connect with so many cool people. And the weird thing is, I've throughout the years, I've connected with a lot of people from the other side of the country and all over the world. But recently, I've connected with a lot of people locally. And you're right in Providence, right? You live in Rhode Island?
Yeah, where are you?
Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. This is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that I've been trying to do for the longest time. I've been trying to meet up with not just people all around the world, but also right here, so we can do things. And over the last year or so, I had a group of different people. We're going to get together on Sundays at 7. Again, we took a little time off because people obviously they have their own lives and stuff, and it's not everybody that's into this stuff yet. But now I've been spending the last several years networking, and we all different people from political persuasions and affiliations. We want to get together and do something peaceful. So, what part of Mass do you in?
I live in Ludlow.
Ludlow, where's that?
That's right next to Springfield. So basically, a couple towns. Yeah, I'm about 15, 20 minutes away from like the Basketball Hall of Fame, and so like near Wilbraham, Palmer, kind of between that. But yeah, it's a little Portuguese and Polish community. It's all Portuguese and Polish, and me being Portuguese, so my family. I was born in Portugal, but we came here, and I know Providence has their own Portuguese community too, up there.
Oh yeah.
And me and the wife, we used to go up there all the time. We lived up there before we had kids. We used to go to Federal Hill all the time, and
yeah, I live not too far away from Federal Hill myself.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. We used to go up there because I had a friend right after high school. He went to Johnson. Well, a couple of friends. I went to Johnson and Wales and Providence College. So we used to drive up there, and it was just an easier drive than Boston. Like people are always like, "Oh, why are you always at Providence? And how come you never go to Boston?" I'm like, honestly, it's an easier drive. I have a buddy who lives, a couple buddies who live in town, so that they know the area. And Boston can be a nightmare trying to get around the city, especially if you're out drinking and you're not. So it for me it was just easier, and it's super clean city, and it was fun, and it was just, I don't know, I just always had like a soft spot for Providence. And my wife and I used to go up there and go out to eat all the time. Sometimes on a Friday night, last second, we'd be like, oh, let's just drive to Providence. We'd go up there, and even a couple of times we went to this is when I was like in my early 20s. We'll go to the after hours club, Therapy. We would like party in Springfield, then go down to Therapy at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Oh, man.
Yeah, those were some long nights. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, before you have kids and you're young and you have the energy, it's like, why not? So now I'm just enjoying a different part of life. Now it's still enjoy going out and having fun, but other enjoyments and kids and doing the family thing. So it's fun. Different chapter, but I definitely don't regret any of it. It was a blast. But yeah, I love this city. Have you grow up in Providence?
Yeah, I was born in Providence, and when I was younger, for kindergarten through 5th grade, I grew up in Laurel, Maryland. My dad and a couple of my uncles moved down to Virginia and Maryland. Coincidentally, Laurel is the place where the NSA is located out of. So I was living in Laurel, Maryland for a little while. My dad tried to operate a business out there. It wasn't as successful as he planned it to be. So I came back here. I've been in Providence from 6th grade, and I've also lived in Boston for a little while too, but mostly my whole life here in Providence. So
yeah,
it's too damn cold, man. I weigh like 14 pounds, and the cold just gets in my bones, and it's like 19 months of winter. My brother and my dad, they moved out to San Diego. I don't know if I want to go out to San Diego because that's like too liberal out there. It's beautiful, but it's another world. So who knows? But it's too cold for me up here.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
Yeah, I get it. It is, you hear people like Joe Rogan and other comedians talk about. There's something about like a toughness that you get in the East Coast. Like you grow up in the East Coast, and there's just this dealing with the winter, dealing with the snow. It's almost like a lot of the comedians who aren't politically correct and don't mind like being a little offensive come from the East Coast, because it's like, dude, we deal with winter, man. Like, go fuck yourself. We're gonna, we're not in the best moods all the time. We're not gonna be,
seriously, dude.
So
what it's like when you get in the car in the first couple of minutes, you're like, and then people how they drive. Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
But it's funny how good we are at driving in the snow, because you look at like you go to other parts of the country, and it's like if there's like a lot of rain, they pull over. Never mind like dealing with snow. Like I'm so used to snow, and there's a chance. I don't know if you guys are possibly getting some tomorrow, but I know that there's a chance of us getting possibly some inches tomorrow of snow. And like it's, to me, it doesn't change my day whatsoever. It's like, okay, everybody has a 4-wheel drive car or front-wheel drive car, and if you need to go somewhere, you just drive a little slower, but you'll get there, and it doesn't mean you necessarily have to be stuck at home. And so to us, it's like it's not that huge of a deal. But you get somebody who isn't used to it. To them, it's like, oh my God, snow! We're gonna be trapped, and it is. I mean, and as you get older, your joints start hurting. In the winter, you just don't feel quite as good. I mean, there's something about that vitamin D and the sun. Everybody's in a better mood when it's a nice day. You just look at it like when it's a nice day, you leave the house and it's like everybody's smiling, people are more motivated. It's there's something about it that I think we definitely lack some vitamin D, having so many months of winter. But yeah, I mean, California is definitely a huge change of environment. But now with like the internet, I mean, you really can connect with people all over the place, anyways. And are you familiar with Richard Grove from Tragedy and Hope?
No, I know the book Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, but I'm not familiar with that.
He has a website called Tragedy and Hope. He does a Peace Revolution podcast. He's actually a 9/11 whistleblower. You probably have seen him in a bunch of documentaries and stuff. And he actually moved to Hartford, and he's not that. I've connected with him a few times. Went down there. He does a lot of work with like the School Sucks Project with Brett Venat and I'm trying to think who else he connects with. He's been on the Turbitt report. He's been on Alex Jones. He did the document.
Tell you, man. By the way, I actually knew about your podcast before all of this, and I checked it out. I love James Corbett. I can't believe that you have people like Roger Stone and stuff on. I mean, so just kudos to you, dude. Seriously, because I mean James Corbett, he's the man. I can't say enough about him because he just says, hey, look, here's the information. He presents it completely factually, and then he says, hey, don't look to me. I'm no hero, just go sort it out. And I think he's really good for the people that are liberal because he sounds almost like a liberal, So he's so like, I could see him waking up the most liberals because that's what I don't know. I think he's great for for like anybody to put on to. I recommend James all the time. And just the fact that you're doing this show with all the amazing guests that you have, man, kudos to you, because that's a big deal. I can tell you're just a regular dude just like me, and you're like, you know what? We got to do something.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I mean, I started the podcast, and I'm sure my listeners are sick of probably hearing this, but I called the Ripple Effect podcast because of that reason, because I was convinced, and I'm like, we can all make a difference, and you never know who you're affecting. And I saw just in a smaller, I guess a smaller sample size, just having conversations with friends, exposing them to documentaries or other podcasts, and just information, sending them articles and stuff. And I could see people's thinking changing, and I could see how I was having some influence on them, or maybe not me, but the people's work that I was sharing with them was having some influence on their thinking, and just kind of broadening their perspective. And I'm like, you know what? And I do music. I was originally a musician doing music and stuff like that. But podcasting was such it was a quicker reward because I'm like, I got into podcasting because I was doing a lot of commuting. And, we have a little family-owned construction company, and we're all over the state and sometimes in Connecticut. And sometimes, we're driving 2.5 hours to a job site, and it sucks. And I'm like, this drive can be a complete waste of my time. Or I can take in some information that's thought-provoking, and I can use it as a moment to kind of consume some stuff on history or philosophy or whatever. And so it actually became useful because, not often would people take, or have an hour or 2 hours out of their day to sit down and just listen to a podcast. But because I was forced to have to commute so often, it gave me a reason to listen to them. So I really got into them, and I'm like, it's uncensored. You can put it out immediately. Nobody tells you what to do. I'm like, you know what? Let me give this shit a try. And I had a couple friends that I knew, specifically my buddy Dave, who we'd always have really interesting conversations. And I'm like, you know what? If I have him on co-host, then we'll talk and we'll just have interesting conversations and kind of try to book guests and see what happens. And I got super lucky that, like, James Corbett was one of my first guests. Jason Burmis from, obviously 9/11, Loose Change. Dan Carlin was one of my first guests. He was on, I think I had less than 30 shows before he was on, which is probably why I was super nervous and I sucked. And Daniele Bignelli, who does the Drunken Taoist podcast and History on Fire podcast, and just a bunch of really, really nice people. Douglas Ruskoff, who has written a bunch of really good books, an interesting guy. He just had these people who were super nice to come on for absolutely no reason. And James Corbett, he's been on, I don't even know how many times. He's been on like a bunch of. He's actually going to be on again Monday. And
do you have some type of alien or reptilian DNA? You're a normal human being, correct?
Yes.
You're just a dude, right?
Yeah.
So anybody that's out there listening needs to realize that you're just a guy. I'm just a guy, and you're somebody that's particularly well-spoken yourself. I know people. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dan Badandi. Dan Badandi is a guy. He won the InfoWars Reporter contest in 2011 or 2012, along with Jakari Jackson. I happened to meet him in a matter of happenstance because I do a 9/11 Truth Rally every year here in Providence since 2011. He happened to do one the same year, inboxed me and said, "Hey," and so I ended up meeting him. He's a really interesting dude. Anybody that is familiar with the Boston bombing scenario or those films will remember Dan jumping on stage and going, "These are the real photos. Don't look at this." He interrupted two separate studio press conferences that they had there, the FBI, and he had false flag trending not on just Twitter but on the entire internet for 3 days. And now this guy, no offense to Dan, I've said this to Dan's face, he's not particularly good looking. He's not particularly well spoken. He's not in shape, and he lives in the smallest city in the smallest state in the United States, and he has changed the world. He has literally changed the world. My man Ricky right here has changed the world. Even if Ricky just woke up one person, that's still the ripple effect. And that's another person reaching another person and another person and another person. So what people need to realize is even maybe you don't want to get in front of a camera. There's a million different ways to do this, but just look at the effect that Ricky has had just by grabbing the microphone. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, that's the whole idea of the ripple effect was I constantly kept telling people, I'm like, listen, this, and possibly that's probably one of the email comments I get the most is this idea that people are motivated to try to do something, or they're inspired because they know that, and I've had some listeners that have been with the show since the beginning, and they've seen it grow, and having Jesse Ventura on, and I've had Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson on, Chief of Staff for Colin Powell in the White House. Dude, I didn't graduate. I barely graduated high school, never went to college. I pour cement for a living. I mean, the fact that I have, Thaddeus Russell coming on talking to me about world, U.S. history or whoever, like we live in a very, a time in history where we don't have the restrictions of not having money to go to a university or having access to the best lecturers or professors. We have the internet, and we have access to all the information that we're willing to search and discover and look up. And I'm sure just like yourself, you just go down this rabbit hole, and then it leads you to this place and leads you to that place. And, I remember I was just listening to a podcast recently with Sam Tripoli. He was on the Fighter and the Kid podcast, and I don't know if you know Sam Tripoli. He's been on this podcast. He has a great conspiracy podcast called the Tinfoil Hat Podcast, and he's a comedian from California, real smart and funny guy. And he was on, and he's debating Brian Callen. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Callen from the Fighter and the Kid podcast, but he's very anti. Him and Eddie Bravo they've had their debates on the Joe Rogan podcast, and Sam Tripoli's the perfect guy because he's not too aggressive, and he really just talks about it in a way that doesn't get somebody defensive. But he was just basically telling Brian Callen, like, some of these things that he's like, it's just a conspiracy theory, or no, that's not true. He's like, listen, I don't have kids. I don't have a job that takes up a lot of my time. He's like, so all I have time to do is research and look this shit up. And he's like, the amazing thing is most of the people I'm arguing with have never looked it up, have never done 1 minute of research. And if you just spend 1 minute of research, you'd be down the same rabbit hole that you have been down, that I have been down, that you realize, holy shit, like you might think we're connecting the dots, but there's a whole lot of fucking dots. And where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's too many things that we know for a fact that, it gets to the point where what is
and that's my thing. And that's where I come in. Is my whole thing is I want to provide people with information that is entirely non-debatable, 100% factual. So I think the biggest thing that people can do is maybe stray away from the fact of, oh, Jay-Z, Rihanna, this is in the Illuminati, get away from that stuff, get away from the speculative stuff, and just, once you present people with hard facts, like you brought up Tragedy and Hope earlier, Carol Quigley, a very legitimate author, Georgetown professor, Harvard trained, Princeton trained, mentor to Bill Clinton. Get Anglo-American Establishment. Pick up Edward Bernays, the book on propaganda. Check out Bertrand Russell's writings. Read David Rockefeller's autobiography, Memoirs in 2002. Check out Brzezinski's books. These people say it in their own writings. So it's not like we have to worry about, are the Ninja Turtles in on Pizzagate? Who cares? We need to worry about the actual factual stuff because these people admit it right out of their own words, their own mouth. They're on video. You can see it. So my idea is, just like you said, let's take the best, most factual, non-debatable information and stray away from the other stuff because our job is to wake up the normies, is to wake up the people that are not awake yet. And my idea is to try to do that in the most non-divisive and most appealing way to them. Because, something that I've seen happen a lot after, the whole 2016 election and stuff. I mean, not only did you see the truth movement splinter with the election of Trump, and it went, the alt-right, and then there's the Ron Paul guys and the 9/11 and the truthers, and it kind of split all up after that. But one of the things that you saw happen was the polarization of things, and now people are waking up like crazy, but they're either getting filtered into the alt-right or the alt-left, and we need to be there to say, with some common sense and some factual information, to say, hey, look at this. And secondly, too, and I myself am guilty of this big time, and I want to try to reel it back. But we need to have empathy for the people, especially. I know it's so easy to make fun of, the libtards screaming at the sky and stuff like that. But these people have actually went through psychological trauma. These psychopaths that have been controlling us have literally made a psychological bubble, making us think that Hillary Clinton was going to win. They had the polls and the media thinking that. And then when they lost, these people and psychopaths and narcissists will do that. I'm getting this information from my good friend Dave McDonough. They will create this bubble. They will manipulate and bend things to have you thinking reality is different. So that's why we see these liberals, and they're screaming at the sky, and they're running and they're coloring and they're playing with Play-Doh. We need to have empathy with those people and be accepting, because when we're just bashing and laughing at them, that's just driving them in the other direction.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think I've been very lucky where I work a job where the winters slow down quite a bit. Obviously, we can't pour concrete when it's snowing. And if I didn't have that free time, or if I had kids instead of having kids, I have two almost 3-year-old and a little over a 1-year-old, and I'm 32, so I didn't have kids very young. But if I had kids in my early 20s, and now I'm stuck working a full-time job I hate, taking care of my priorities, taking care of my kids, taking care of I'm like, I wouldn't have time to do all this research and little by little chip away at basically, the worldview I had that was molded for me. And it took time, and it took a little bit of just this documentary kind of making me open my eyes a little bit, and that documentary, and then I get exposed to this book and that podcast and this, and little by little you realize, like, holy shit, there's much more to this. And the most amazing part is, like you said, if you just do the research, a lot of these people who are pulling the strings, they talk about it openly. I mean, PNAC. I mean, everybody knows about PNAC. I mean, it's just out there. And I remember last time Corbett was on my podcast, we were talking about his new documentary, Why Big Oil Conquered the World, which was a sequel to How Big Oil Conquered the World.
Very good, by the way.
Yeah. And I had him on, and actually, if you watched it, Richard Grove, who I told you lives in Hartford, who has a Tragedy and Hope website, he's in the documentary. I had him co-host with me the last time James was on, because he does a big part on eugenics in the beginning of the documentary. But so you probably, if you see him, you probably recognize his face.
I've seen him.
Yeah, and one thing that we talked about was, like, all these references he had, all these articles that he shows in these documentaries, all these quotes. I mean, all this stuff is it's public information. It's out there. Anybody can look it up. Like, all this stuff is public knowledge, and it's history. It's not even conspiracy theory. It's just a part of history, and it's out there.
And the crazy thing about it is, too, you don't even really need to sit there and go through all the facts at this point. I mean, we know that all the food that we eat the majority of it's all GMO, and it's either spray with pesticide and you have to be in a moon rocket suit just to handle it, and then magically it ends up on your dish and it's okay, or it has built-in pesticides and there's all the negative ramifications there. People like you and I were called crazy because we thought that. I had protests on fluoride years ago, and I met with the mayor here in Providence and all this stuff. Now, Harvard and multiple other studies have shown correlation to lowering IQ. People like you and I were called crazy about geoengineering. Now there's conferences on geoengineering. Anybody can just go look that up on YouTube, a geoengineering conference. They have multiple ones. They have them every single year. I believe 2015 was in San Diego. That's the last one I remember. I mean, we all know that voting's rigged. I mean, whether you like or hate Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders, I mean, the elections were rigged. And even going back before that, we have the elections being rigged with Bush and all that. And it doesn't make a difference because they're all picked out by the Trilateral Commission on record in the Council on Foreign Relations. And then bribery is legal, lobbying. You can just lobby somebody and that's totally legal. And now, I mean, not only did this government, it's well known now, even my dad called me crazy in 2013, and my dad agrees with a lot of this stuff here. I was saying, Dad, they're bringing drugs in, and they brought drugs in the 80s to destroy black people and bring crack cocaine in and destroy our inner cities. Oh, that never happened. They made a freaking Hollywood movie about it now. It's called Kill the Messenger. I mean, we know all about that.
Yeah.
That's happened. And then they sell drugs on TV. Big Pharma sells drugs on TV to you. But if I was to sell you, I don't know what it is in mass, but over here, if I sold you more than an ounce of marijuana and a cop's caught that, I could go to jail. But then they can sell, drugs, on TV. We're the longest, I always say this, longest, most illegal war, longer than the Vietnam War, longer than the Civil War. Where is everybody? There's no college student protesting. There's no Black Panthers protesting. There's no hippies. Nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Our education system, we know it was created by the National Education Administration, by the Rockefellers, the Carnegies. Same with the American Psychological Foundation. You can still look to their website. They control every single aspect of our entire lives. I mean, this country started on a 3% tax on tea. We're taxed 30 to 40%, and nobody bats an eye. I mean, forget the child trafficking, forget the NSA spying on you, and all this stuff. And these people blatantly admit it. People don't even necessarily have to go through the white papers. We're living it right now. Things that you said years ago, they're here.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the things that I remember, because for a while I would be considered the conspiracy theorist in the group. It's like, they're like, oh, Ricky, what's your conspiracy theory on this? Or what's, and it's funny because in a way, people find it like fun because there might be some truth to it. And, I always tell people, I'm like, listen, the only way conspiracy theories could even stay alive is that there's a hint of truth, because there's nobody going online researching this stuff. And if they only get to dead ends, they wouldn't stay alive. I'm like, the reason why they stay alive is because there's some truth to some of this. Even the craziest conspiracy theory, maybe not flat earth, but other crazy conspiracy theories, there's hints of truth, and maybe you researching that crazy conspiracy theory, you might find out that there's not a whole lot of truth to it, but it might lead you down another road that you're like, holy shit, but there's some truth to this, there is some truth to that, and I just learned something new. So NSA spying on everybody, if you talked about that 10 years ago, people look at you like you're crazy. Wait, you're telling me the government could just, people who work for the NSA could just search your name in like a Google search and turn on your webcam? That sounds like, Orwell 1984 nonsense. Like, and it's just like, no, man, like that's true. I mean, I just had Thomas Drake on. I mean, the stuff, there's a great documentary we talked about when he was on called, The United States of Secrets. It's actually it was a PBS Frontline documentary, and it's one of the best documentaries on what happened with the whole after 9/11 and how the government basically knew they were breaking the law, purposely looked for loopholes and ways to get past doing warrantless spying. And so this idea, when you have General Hayden doing interviews saying that we did not spy on people, well, oh no, we followed all the proper procedures, we didn't break any laws, it's all bullshit. And the thing is that when you watch this documentary, there is people who are involved in those debates, those internal debates. I mean, it's so well put together, and very surprising. It was a PBS Frontline, and I was just surprised how much information they actually exposed in it. But Thomas Drake is in it, and a bunch of other people who were in the inside, and other whistleblowers. And it was just, it's crazy. So the fact that, people think that, I don't know, like you were saying before, in a way, you do feel bad for people because people do get caught up in their everyday lives. They don't have time to research, and then they put on the TV for an hour before they go to bed.
Well, I gotta stop you, man, because you know what? People always make up that excuse too, and that's like the second time you said it. And you have a life, you have kids, and you still make time to do this. I can't give these people any excuse because, I work full time. Okay, I do this stuff. I have a family. I have friends. I do all this stuff in my free time. And people can say, yeah, I had a long day. I got to take care of the kids. Oh, let me just get an hour piece. People have an hour a week. People have 2 to 5 hours a week. And it doesn't take that much. There's nobody that's that busy. That's busy. And when you look at it this way, like, guess what? You have the internet. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking to you, Ricky. I'm talking to the public. Like, you guys have the internet. And the United States is one of the few, and trust me, I'm one of the first people speaking out against the atrocities committed by the United States government. But the United States is one of the last places left that we have freedom of speech. People all over the world, half the world live off $2 a day, and they're looking to us to do something. It's our responsibility to do something. You guys have a laptop. You guys have to do something. It might be making a meme. It may be just connecting with other people. It may be just sharing information or podcasts or books or documentaries, whatever it is. But everybody can do something. There's nobody, you can go home and watch Dancing with the Stars, or you can go home and do this. And don't get me wrong, I still, this is my passion. I do this almost all the time, but I still listen to music. I still watch movies every once in a while, too. I just watched Back to the Future again recently, 1 and 2, and the Terminators. I was on an 80s nostalgia kick. But there's no excuse for anybody out there to not do something. I know people right now that are living with cancer that are doing something. I literally know multiple people that I talk to on a daily basis that are out there with cancer, and they're doing something. So there's no excuse.
Well, it's weird because I've shared one of my early guests too, which was huge. Was speaking of cancer, was Dr. Brzezinski, who been curing cancer since the late '80s, early '90s, and has a historical battle with the FDA. And same thing, my co-host is like, I'm like, I don't know too much about it, but I'll do a little research before the show, and everything he found a lot of stuff that said that he used pseudoscience and this and that. And I'm like, great. I'm like, because I want you to be skeptical. That way, I'm not just here being a fanboy throwing out easy questions. I'm like, this is actually good because if there's listeners who are skeptical, maybe you will give him a hard time so he can, get the answers out of them and the explanations out of them. And after the show, he's like, I can't believe this guy has been harassed. I can't believe this guy could be saving lives, and instead he's spending all his money in court and it's crazy. But when I share a guy like that podcast online, you would think like this, sharing a show where this guy's been curing cancer, everybody's been affected by cancer one way or another, you think it would blow up. It doesn't. And then I share a picture of me and and my wife out to eat, and it's like. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, I could share the cure to cancer right now, and people just like scroll. They would just scroll. They're like, okay, the cure to cancer. Who cares? What is he eating? Where is he? Well,
that's because people have been indoctrinated in this box for such a long time.
And that's my point. To get back to what you were saying, that's where I kind of feel bad for him, because we all could be them. We're all products of our environment. We all could be like, we were lucky enough where I don't know your story, and I want to get into that. I want to get into what led you down this road and what you think were the biggest influences in your life to kind of help you lead you down this road. But I think with me, a lot of it was like, early I was raised typical Portuguese kid playing soccer, and then I rebelled against that. Me and my brother played in a metal band. I still listen to metal and industrial music, a lot of dark stuff, and it made me do a lot of internal searching. It helped me I liked things that were outside the norm, and so when I started looking at things, when I got into like just alternative history or alternative news or whatnot, to me, it was like it was natural to go down there, because I'm like, this is just like what I've always liked in my life, like things that were different, things, people were told me to like this, but I rebelled against it, and I realized, no, this is actually the truth. This is actually what I like. And that was what helped me. But a lot of people, like my wife, I mean, I get so excited. I'm like, hey, I'm fucking, I get to interview Jesse Ventura today. She's like, great. Did you take out the trash? It's like, no. I'm like, this guy was a fucking governor. I'm like, this guy was. I mean, he's written books on the JFK assassination. You know, it's just like all this stuff and. You know, it's one of those things where, but she, you know, knowing her family and knowing her environment, she was never exposed to anything to help her look at things outside the box and little by little, I've, especially like having kids and now when the vaccine conversation came about and you know, I had Del Bigtree who did the Vax documentary and like, you know, I wanted to really get my wife like knowledgeable. I'm like, listen, don't take my word for it. Here's the information. And, you know, I had John Rappaport when he was one of the first guys reporting on the CDC whistleblower. And, you know, I'm like, here's the information. I'm like, here's the research, here's the information, you know, and then we can talk. And little by little, you know, once your kids are involved and, you know, you're not just looking after yourself, now it's your kids and it's hitting home, then she was much more open to, like, looking at this information and stuff. But a lot of people, it like you said, it's all social, you know, social control, and it's molding us into these, and like you said, the school system. You're not creating thinkers. You're creating.
Well, they literally say that when the Rockefellers and the Carnegies created the National Education Administration. You guys can look this up. They literally said what you're going to say. They said we need to turn us from citizens into workers. Yeah. They literally say that in the documents, and they've controlled. I mean, this whole group started with Tragedy and Hope. They controlled every single aspect of the media back when they first started out in London in the late 1800s. They had the newspapers, they had the Times and the Economist, they had their people at the editors, they had their people at Oxford, All Souls, and Balliol, the three most influential colleges. They wrote the Encyclopedia Britannica, and even one of their members was Rudyard Kipling. So it's fiction. So every single way that you could ingest information at that time was controlled by these people. And then you fast forward to 1925, you had J.P. Morgan wondering what percentage of American newspapers you'd have to purchase to control Americans think. Well, the answer was 25 to 33%. And then you have, you know, David Rockefeller in his autobiography talks about when he was at the Army and he met William Paley, who was the head of the psychological warfare department at the Army. And he would go on to found CBS. And then you have MK Ultra. And then you mix that with the GMOs and the fluoride, and then the psychological foundations and, you know, the vaccines and all that other stuff. And what it really comes down to, people are so bewildered nowadays. And then a lot of people on the psychotropic drugs were just zombie enough to work, but, you know, not and pay for our own slavery, but, you know, not smart enough to question anything. But what it really comes down to is when you present somebody with the information on a one-to-one basis or something that they can't refute, one of two things happens. And I know this has happened to you a million times. One, they're either going to glare off or disagree with you. But the people that really comes down, what it really comes down to is humility. And I believe that you're a humble person. And I know that you're a humble person because it takes a big amount of humility when someone says, guess what? Your whole life is a lie. The personality you're trying to be is a lie. The music that you like, the person you're trying to be is a lie, because society, especially, if you grew up listening to hip hop, you're supposed to dress and act like this. If you grew up listening to rock, you're supposed to dress and act like this. And before you even hit puberty, society has these molds, and you can jump to this one, you can jump to that one, but they're all molds controlled by the CIA and the societal engineers. And it takes a truly, truly humble person to say, wow, you know what? You may be right. Like, maybe I base my whole personality is a lie. That's a lot for a person to ingest.
Yeah, I think ego definitely prevents you sometimes from being able to deal with the fact that maybe everything that you thought you knew, you don't know. And I mean, you see it with all, you know, people who have alternate perspectives on history. You know, I had Manuel Rosa on, who wrote the book on Columbus and really who he really was and his true background, and he's getting so much pushback from historians. I had Gerard Williams on years ago, who wrote the book Grey Wolf: The Escape of Adolf Hitler, and this was before, you know, now it's a little bit more mainstream knowledge that Adolf Hitler might have made it Argentina. But I remember when I had him on, I've had a lot of friends that World War II buffs who were like, that's bullshit. I'm like, really? I'm like, you know what's bullshit is, like, you've never looked at the evidence of Hitler dying in Germany. I'm like, and I know that because there isn't any. And so, which means you haven't actually looked it up. So you're just taking whatever you've been told and think that it's sacred and it's the truth. And it's like, you never looked into it. And that's it's funny because Tommy Segura had this funny joke that I'm going to butcher, but it's very, it makes a lot of sense to kind of how you can just tell a lie and it just can be continually told over and over again and over and over again, and nobody ever questions it. And he was talking about how he was watching this movie with his dad or something like that, and his whatever the actor was, this big name actor, his dad's like, hey, did you know that what's his face is gay? And Tom's like, really? He's like, yeah, he's gay. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. And then, like, you know, every time somebody would bring up that actor, Tommy would be like, hey, did you know that what's his face was gay? And he's like, no, I didn't know that. And then one day he was talking to his buddy and he says this, right? He's like, hey, did you know that that actor, you know, what's his face is gay? He's like, he's not gay. I was at his wedding. And then he's like, so and then he calls his dad and he's like, hey, Dad. He's like, you told me what's his face is gay. My buddy was at his wedding. He's married and he has kids. He's like, oh, I thought he was gay. and like, that's how easy you can continue a lie and spread bullshit. And I mean, obviously it's a silly example, but it's the same way that, you know, Hitler.
That guy was not even an authority figure. Exactly. Imagine if he was a policeman or a government official.
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue too, is when somebody who works in the White House or is a politician or, you know,
official say.
Yeah, I mean, I've had
public service official say. Like, just hearing that official say, it's like, it's like, what the hell?
Well, one thing I've learned about doing this podcast, talking to Jesse Ventura, talking to Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, talking to Jack Abramoff. I've had Jack Abramoff on. I mean, talking to these people, you realize they're just people with ideas. And I mean, very surprisingly, you know, Jack Abramoff is also very respectful of other people's ideas. I thought maybe he'd be the person I would maybe butt heads with a little bit, and I did a little bit with just like we have different opinions on lobbying, and even though
I have to check that episode out because I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, but you know, he obviously got in trouble, and then you know, had this change of heart and realized that, you know, but he's kind of doing some good exposing that, like, hey, these are the loopholes that I took advantage of, and I'm letting you know that these are the loopholes I'm taking advantage of. But surprisingly, he still has this very positive look on lobbying. He thinks that, lobbying is just giving people a voice. I'm like, yeah, but when, you know, the person with the most money can have the biggest voice, I'm like, the rest of us are fucked, you know. And so it's you know, and I had the similar debate with Roger Stone when he was on, and you know, I've had some people on, or some people email me and contact me like, dude, I don't know how I feel about Roger Stone. I'm like, listen, he's a very respectful guy. He's been nothing but nice to me for coming on.
It does make a difference. If you had the chance to interview Tony Podesta, would you turn that down?
Well, the big thing is that the things that I had him on to talk about, like I wouldn't have him on just to talk about how great Donald Trump is to help his campaign. But when I had him on the first time, I had him on to talk about his JFK assassination book, which, you know, I've done a bunch of shows on the JFK assassination. The topic's super interesting, and I think it's still very relevant because people have to think about this. If this, most people will agree it wasn't just Oswald, and if it was even Oswald, there's a lot of debate, but a lot of people will agree that the CIA had some hand in it. So if the CIA can kill a democratically elected president in broad daylight, you know, blow his brains out, then when his brother, and then kill the guy who killed him, then poison the guy who killed him, then his brother runs for president and kills him, then what, like, the possibilities are endless. Like, then anything can happen. You know, the fact that anything...
Son, too.
Yeah, so, you know, I had him on to talk about that the first time. Then the second time, I had him on to talk about his Clinton book, and which was really, you know, to me, it's a really important topic because the Clintons get this really pro-minority, pro-poor people.
Especially here in the Northeast.
What's that? Yeah, absolutely.
Northeast.
Yeah, everybody forgets about, you know, putting China in the WTO and all, you know, everything else that it has to do with it's like people only remember the economy being good, but they don't remember all the other shit that end up having a backlash afterwards.
And can you believe this? Like, now, like, all of a sudden George Bush is cool.
Yeah.
Like, the media's like, George, are you freaking kidding me? George Bush is cool now.
Yeah, well, the thing about George Bush and Bill Clinton, I think they're and Obama. I think the things I almost feel like they're ex-girlfriends that, like, when you dated them, you realize that, like, all their flaws, and then once you broke up with them, you only remembered how funny and it's like that's how they are. It's like once you break up with them, you only remember the good times. You're like, oh, I remember George Bush. He was fucking hilarious. Sometimes he would say some stupid shit, But when he was
funny, I'll give him that. He was hilarious.
If I had to pick a president to go grab a drink with, it probably would be George Bush. But he does seem like. But I think that's what people like about them, and that's why we're in such a weird time, because you look at Trump and Sanders, even though they're completely different with philosophies. Well, I'm not sure Trump even really has a philosophy, but even though they're very different with their ideas or whatnot, their fans had a lot in common. They wanted something completely radically different. They just didn't want more of the same, and it didn't matter who it was. They didn't want more of the same. And and I mean, talking about conspiracy theories, look at Seth Rich. That story. Now that you have Brazil, I forget her first name. Donna Brazil.
Yeah, Donna Brazil. And I'll just interrupt you here because I have a terrible memory. But I was actually, when I went to the Bilderberg meeting this summer in Chantilly, I also went with some independent journalists to the bar that Seth Rich was last seen in. And if you just walked in there, you wouldn't have known. But they have a small plaque with this photo up at the corners of one of the bars facing inward. You really wouldn't notice. So myself, journalist Titus Frost, I'm not sure if you're aware of him. He does Pizzagate, the Unanswered Questions 1 and 2. He's starting to become pretty big on YouTube. But he was down there, Bilderberg. This guy B. Rich, Lee Stewie, and Dan Dix. We were down there, and we were getting some drinks, just trying to check things out. And when the bartender came over to us, we were sitting at a table, we ordered some drinks, and then we just asked, like, nothing serious about Seth Rich. We started talking about that, and then we started getting into questions with the bartender. The bartender bought us 2 rounds over for free for asking questions about Seth Rich, and then the bar manager had a conversation outside with Lee and Dan Dix for a very long time. So the people that were in that bar that worked there, I mean, they bought us, it's one thing someone buys you a round, but someone bought me 2 rounds, so, and that was 5 of us. So there is definitely something to the whole Seth Rich thing. And obviously,
what do they talk to Dan about?
Talking about the UK ambassador. I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious, but I mean, the people that work there themselves know something's going on.
Do you know what they talked to Dan about or Lee about?
He basically was saying that something was shady that night. Dan has the details, but he said he didn't want to go on record. He didn't want to come out and say anything. He said that he had been harassed and people were coming around and wanting to talk to him and stuff like that. But I was actually surprised about how open these people were, because, I mean, that tells me that if you're being so open with people that you don't even know, then that must mean that you really want to get the truth out there, I mean, because otherwise, I mean, Seth Rich died here, get the hell out of here. But if we're asking the right questions and they're like, we're going to buy you 2 rounds here and we're going to talk to you for a while, it seems like they must be concerned, because, it's not normal that people would confide in people that they don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I wonder if they're buying you rounds because they wanted you to think, okay, these are trustworthy people. They like us. They're friendly. We can believe we can believe what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, the fact that initially you had a lot of people saying, this and that, the family saying that, to leave them alone and stop saying, but it was obvious that they didn't steal anything. He was shot in the back. I mean, the Julian Assange comments of him saying that, there's a price to pay for, giving him information. And now Donna Brazil coming out and saying that he was like a hero and that the whole election was rigged.
She said she feared for her life after Seth Rich died, meaning something pretty obvious. I mean, if he just died in a robbery, then obviously why are you fearing for your life? And then secondly, the parents said, we don't want to make anything of it, but that's only after they hired a private investigator. So they must have not want to know what's going on. And how do you not want to know what happened to your murdered son? What kind of idiots are you? So you hire a private investigator. He finds something out, and then you're like, oh, no. Somebody must have talked to them or threatened them or something, because why would you go through the trouble of hiring a private investigator if you were just going to recant later on? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think I don't know where I read this, but something about they talked to, I don't know if they talked to the DNC or they talked to somebody about like just trying to get the media off their case, and that was what why they said that. They just wanted to be left alone. It wasn't so much like, hey, there's nothing to see here. There's no conspiracy. There shouldn't be an investigation. It was just a random act of violence. But it was more about them just trying to get people to leave them alone. And when you're mourning over the loss of your son, I can see wanting some privacy. So I think people could misunderstand why they wanted that space. They didn't. It's possible they didn't want that space, not because there wasn't anything there, but because they just obviously were dealing with some very tragic times. And so yeah, and then you look at that journalist who died in the car accident, Hastings.
Michael Hastings. Yeah,
that was a really interesting, just incident where no breaks, nothing. He had a text message about having a big story. Obviously, he exposed I forget which general it was that he exposed that he got in trouble, but he was it was kind of a big deal, and so he could have easily pissed off the wrong people, and his death was very suspicious too. And so this stuff does happen. It's the idea that we can all. It's almost to me, it's laughable that people can be pretty open to the idea that Putin has killed other political people and other people that might be a threat to him, but it doesn't happen here. It's like go back to JFK. We shot the president in the head in broad daylight. Like, if that can happen, then you think Seth Rich's life, like that, there's not a price, for that. There's not, like, it's just, to me, it's insane. It's crazy. And
we have on record the fact that the CIA has assassinated or attempted to assassinate many foreign leaders. They've also, we have the kill list. They've assassinated U.S. citizens already on record. We don't even have to get into the conspiracy aspect of it all. They've killed Anwar al-Awlaki and his 2 children on record. So, we don't even have to worry about the conspiracy aspect because they've done it. They've murdered U.S. citizens.
Yeah, and look at John Pilger's documentary, War and Democracy. It's a great documentary on all the coups in Central and South America that the U.S., in Guatemala, Chile, all the interventions. And look at Iran, taking down a democratically elected president of Iran in the early 50s, all because he didn't want to renew the lease on the oil fields. It just, we're when people talk about Russia getting involved in our elections, it's like we've been getting involved in other people's elections everywhere, and we're still doing it. We're doing it. We did it in Ukraine. We're doing it.
We did it in France. The ridiculous thing about this all is, I don't know if anybody remembers, but before this happened, you can go look it up. Obama said, that's ridiculous. You can't hack the election. The election is made by people and every day in communities and churches and all this stuff. And then they say the election got hacked. And the crazy thing about it is, then they say, oh, actually it didn't get hacked. It was this Russian propaganda that went through these different media organizations, these talking points. But there's a freaking video of Obama endorsing Emmanuel Macron on video. He literally interfered in that election the same way he said Russia did, even worse. He just came out and said, yeah, I endorse Macron. But imagine if Putin came out and said, I endorse Trump or I endorse Hillary. But he did the same thing during the same time right after he said we couldn't hack the elections. Bizarre.
Well, it's all just bullshit. That's the thing. You can watch the video of what Obama says about Hillary when he's running against her, and then what he says about her when she's running against Trump. And it's
have you ever seen candidate Obama debates President Obama when he's talking about, I believe Americans need to know what's in their food, and I want to pass a labeling bill to make sure that happens. And then, he adds the head of Monsanto to the FDA. And then he's talking about, I believe that Americans shouldn't have this warrantless stuff, and that drones shouldn't be flying over in the NSA. And then he's like, I believe, you have to have a certain bit of security going if you're going to have some safety. And he's like, it's just ridiculous. These people flip-flop on everything that they say they're going to do. Read my lips, no new taxes. I did not have sex with that woman. No weapons of mass destruction. it's ridiculous how people can still, like you said, and it's because of, I mean, I can understand why, if you keep getting beaten in the head and there's these societal parameters that you're not allowed to look upon, but then when you know something is going on and something happens, then you got to say, hey, okay, I mean, this person lied to me multiple times. And the thing with Obama is like, okay, I understand if someone voted for Obama in 2008, and then 2012, how can you still vote for Obama? Like, you need to know. I mean, it's okay to get fooled once, but fool me twice. Fool me twice, the old saying in Tennessee. Fool me, don't get fooled again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a lot of people was fooled the first time Obama ran, including myself. I didn't think he was going to be as bad as he was, because I think we were blinded by our dislike of Cheney and Bush. I think we disliked them so much that we wanted something so drastically different. You had this Southerner who wasn't really Southerner because he was born in Connecticut and had a fake Southern accent, but he was this guy who came off as this country boy, and you had Dick Cheney, who's this just looked like this evil white guy, and then you had Obama, who was this cool black guy, and he seemed hip, and he seemed he liked basketball. I like basketball. He I'm like, and he was a good speaker, and he seemed very personable, and he seemed like exactly what the opposite was of what was there. So I think it wasn't so much, and I think it's similar to this election. I don't think people actually liked Trump as much as they disliked Hillary. I think people didn't like Obama as much as they disliked Bush, and they just wanted something radically different.
Totally agree with that. And that's what, I mean, like you said earlier, that's what happened this election, is people are sick and tired of the status quo. That's why they voted for Trump. That's why they voted for Bernie Sanders. And I think it's going to be even more raucous come 2020, because we're going to have a freak show. It's going to be Kanye West, Kid Rock, the regular Rock. We're going to have all these celebrities running for office. So it's going to be interesting. But I am looking forward to my vote. I kind of, I'm on the fence between libertarianism and total anarchy. I think anarchy at this point is like socialism or any of these things. It sounds good if human beings are perfect, but we're not ready for that yet. So let's work towards that. And I don't have any problem with that. But last election cycle, I supported Austin Peterson. But, I don't know if you're aware, but Adam Kokesh is running for not president in 2020. Right. So he wants to get elected, and then just destroy the federal government and the presidency. So
if you
hopefully. Go ahead.
Did you ever check out that debate that I had him on with Hunter Motz on my show?
I did not. No, I've seen him debate a few people, but not on your show. No.
Yeah. Well, they're both past guests that I love, and Hunter Motz is one of the smartest guys I've ever met, and he's just super smart, and he's been on he's slowly getting into the kind of our realm, and he was on the School Sucks podcast, and he has a great book called The Straight A Conspiracy, about this idea that it sounds like a conspiracy book, and it kind of, I guess in a way it is, this idea that you get straight A's because you're just smarter than me, and the conspiracy is, that's all bullshit. It's smart people trying to convince you that they have upper hand on you because they were born that way or whatever. And the truth is, we can all learn the same shit. We're all capable of learning it. So it's a really good book, and he also has a podcast with Brian Callen, who is a regular on the Joe Rogan podcast and co-host The Fighter and the Kid, and it's called Mixed Mental Arts. And it's a really interesting podcast where he just tries to get the most interesting people, and he dissects your thinking, and it's all about it's similar to this show. It's all about sharing ideas and challenging ideas, and challenging our own ideas. And one of the most interesting guys, but I had them both on, and I know that Adam's always super open to debates, and I know Hunter's always super open to debates, and they're both really fun to listen to talk, both well spoken, both very well thought out ideas. So I had them on. I'm like, hey, would you guys be down to have a debate on the show? Just because, to be from the selfish perspective, I just think it'd be fun to hear you guys go at it. I love hearing two really smart people just challenge each other's ideas. So they did it. It went so well that we did a part two, and so we did two of them, and even Hunter Motz at the end was, Adam Kokesh was like, he really gave a lot of props to Hunter, because I think he challenges ideas in a way they've never been challenged, because Hunter's a very intelligent guy, and he doesn't have any ideologies. He doesn't subscribe to anything, and he comes from a very science background, so he understands human tendencies, human natures, and stuff like that. So it was a very, very interesting perspective, because I very much subscribe to a lot of libertarian ideas, which I think most people, when I've had a lot of people who are like, I don't even know what libertarians believe, and I'm like, how about this? You have the right to pursue happiness and do whatever the fuck you want, as long as you don't get into a way of anybody else's right to pursue happiness. It's that simple. And they're like, oh, well, that sounds nice. I'm like, yeah, that's basically it. I'm like, if you just want to dumb it down, I'm like, that's basically the easiest way of looking at it. And I remember when Ron Paul ran, a lot of people would be like, oh, his ideas are too radical. I'm like, that's what they want you to think, because they want you to just vote in somebody who's more of the same, But what we need is somebody radical, because more of the same doesn't work. One of the craziest rabbit holes I ever went down once, this was like years ago, I just started YouTubing old debates like JFK and Nixon and Bush and Clinton and the amazing thing was they all gave you the same bullshit. It's almost like, now our debates are in high def and those are in black and white, but they're saying the same nonsense. They're saying like it's all about the middle class. It's about, I'm gonna help the middle class. I'm gonna cut taxes. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna help the economy. It's like, it's just this. I mean, it's literally just replaying over and over again the same shit, and it's the same narrative, and it's the same technique. I mean, they know that's how they reach the people, and they're just basically capitalizing on our inability to remember the past, our awful long-term memory. It's because in 4 years we forget about how shitty, all the things they promised, all the things they didn't.
Exactly why George Bush can become popular again after he was so hated. We had to get Obama. It's so insane, and that's why it's so important that we need to showcase these differing opinions, these libertarian viewpoints, because guess what? The libertarians are not going to win the presidency in 2020. And you know what? They probably won't win in 2024. But, I mean, if we get enough people just to hear that, and like you're talking about earlier, I've done the same thing that you have. And I went back and I saw not every debate, but I've seen a lot of the debates. And the only two differing voices that I've heard in those debates were Ross Perot, now Larry, can I tell you, and Ron Paul. And if you take a look at what they were saying, they were right. The only dissenting voices, but guess what? They were exactly right. Ross Perot was like, and if we sign this NAFTA and GATT, you're going to hear a giant sucking sound, Larry. And it's exactly what happened. And everything that Ron Paul said, if anybody has free time, go back and watch Ron Paul at the Republican debates in 2008 and 2012. It's just incredible. He woke so many people up just by being a differing viewpoint, and all he was offering was common sense. He actually got mixed boos and applause for saying the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. And he was still even getting boos because of that. But it does register with some people. And so the key thing is, whether it's your podcast or Ron Paul's information or other factual information, if we keep showcasing this and keep voting libertarian and keep doing every single peaceful thing that we can do to keep pushing the football down the field farther, we're going to get to the point, and this is what it's about, because people don't want to wake up unless it's cool or they're very humble. We have to make it to where it's cool, to where enough people know what's going on. It's like, oh, yeah, we know that. Yeah, obviously, we know, and that's the whole goal. So we have to give as much a platform we can. Anytime you can, share the freaking cure for cancer. Like, if people know that out there, keep sharing this factual information. And the people that are sitting on Facebook and on Twitter right now, I'm like, oh, should I post this meme? Should I check that out? I don't know. Someone's gonna hit me back and say, ah. But you got to do it. I mean, you have to do it. We're at a point where it's like, if we don't start giving these people a voice, then it's going to be too late.
Yeah, and I understand that fear, because I early doing this podcast, I was nervous about posting that episode and having a bunch of people. I wasn't worried about posting the episode. I was worried about all the arguments I was going to get in with people hitting me up and saying, oh, Dr. Brzezinski is pseudoscience. Or I remember the first time I posted a podcast on the vaccine debate, people hitting me up and saying, that's, you're putting kids in harm's way, putting out this information. The thing is, I understand, like, it's controversial issues, but little by little, you're going to be on the right side of history, because little by little, the truth's going to come out. And today, you can have conversations with more people than ever about vaccines, and a lot of people are like, you know what? Like, even people that I thought, were super pro-vaccine, super mainstream with their views, they come up to me and be like, hey, I listened to that podcast you did. It's like, dude, I'm really like questioning if I should have vaccinated my kids or whatever, and people are having second thoughts, and it just, you can only fight it for so long before, the truth comes out. And
don't give up. Like we talked earlier, don't give up. Don't get mad at them if they don't initially wake up, because like you're saying, I have planted so many seeds, and that seed, some people are just gonna be like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm gonna check that out. Oh, you're telling me that a building fell that wasn't hit by a plane and it was broadcasted before it was down, and I can look this up right now? Wow, that's crazy. Are you kidding me? And then some people are gonna just give you the glare. But you know what? There's even been people in my life, even my mom, because I was a punk when I was growing up as a kid. I wasn't the world's sweetest kid. I wasn't the adorable Will that I've grown up to be now. And so even my mom has said to me, she's like, you know what, Will, at first when I was hearing this stuff, she's like, look who's coming from. My mom said that to me, But over the years, it's like you plant that seed. It's like, oh, wow, Will did say that a long time ago that this was happening. And you know what? And once they hear that from another person or another source, like my younger brother, I was telling him about some of this stuff and hearing some of this stuff, and it was still like, it's not that he wasn't listening. He was taking it all in. But then he heard something in a rap song by Nas, the rapper Nas, the same thing that I had said, and he was like, oh, it's not just my crazy brother Will. There's other people that think this way. So all you have to do is plant that seed, and don't turn on him. Don't try to punch him like I tried to punch my brother Jeff for denying that Building 7 whatever, but just you gotta have the empathy on him and plant those seeds for sure.
Yeah, that's so important, because believe me, I've gone in some heated debates with friends, and it's the same thing. It's like at the end of the conversation, I'm like, did I really accomplish anything? And I'm like, you know what? I did, because once they hear it from somebody else, and once they run into somebody else that they respect, they're listening to a podcast with a guest that they respect, and they're saying the same thing, all of a sudden, like, it's going to add up, and they're going to be like, okay, if all these people are saying the same thing, there might be something I'm missing here. And you never know who you're affecting. You never know who I've seen it with people where just like the same people I'm having debates with on an issue, years ago, now are on the same side of the issue, and they're like, you were right, and it's amazing. And so it's so true. You can't, it's hard because some people aren't confrontational. They don't want to get in arguments. They don't want to get in debates. And these are unfortunately conversations that do spark debates. I remember being, my wife works at a restaurant, and before we had kids, I would go sit at the bar and hang out until she got out. And people would bring up whatever and 9/11 or something like that, and my wife would look at me like, shut up, don't say, but I can't help it. Like, to me, it's like, and I would tell her the same thing. I'm like, listen, it might be a debate at that moment, but when that person goes home and they have time to like calm down and gather their thoughts and think about what I said, I'm like, some of it might make sense to them, and ego might get in the way of them admitting I'm right at that moment. But I'm like, when they're home alone, or later that night, or the next day, when they're thinking about it by themselves, and and their wall is down, they might, maybe I just started a little rift. Maybe I just started planting a little seed of doubt, and maybe they'll just go on Google or YouTube and search a term or a documentary I mentioned or whatever, and next thing you know, they're down that rabbit hole, and you're changing their perspective, and that person's going to have a conversation with another close friend, and maybe change their perspective, and it's going to keep on going and going and going, and you never know who you're affecting. It's, Thomas Drake was on, and he like we talked about with him, he influenced Edward Snowden. He would never think, Edward Snowden publicly said in an interview, without Thomas Drake, there wouldn't be Edward Snowden. I'm like, so one of the biggest historical whistleblowers probably in the history of the world, Edward Snowden, was influenced by Thomas Drake, who, when he was doing something, he just thought he was doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He just wanted to do what was right, and he had no intentions of influencing anybody. He didn't think he'd be inspirational, whatever, and he just influenced Edward Snowden. So you never know who you're impacting, and stories like that are so important. And talking about stories, I want to get into your story, because how did you go from, or when did it start? What like, how young were you when you started kind of looking at things from a different perspective, and what do you think caused that I guess awakening, for lack of a better term?
Well, it's a good question. I wish I could tell you what caused it. I've always been a very naturally curious person. I had, I always loved growing up as a kid, unsolved mysteries, or if my dad would have it on the TV, something about like Bigfoot or UFOs, I'm like, oh, what's this? This is something different I've never heard of, So it piqued my curiosity. But I believe the mainstream story, even after even like 2002, 2003, I was like, oh, well, maybe we weren't right to go into Iraq, but Saddam's a bad guy. Saddam's a bad guy. I had no idea that we put him in power in 1953, and we lied to get into war the first time or the second time. I had no idea. But then when I first started living on my own, and then I got, the internet to myself for the first time, I had heard these things. And there was one time where I was out at the DMV in 2001 where I was just, I took the ticket. The DMV out here in Rhode Island, you're there for 4 or 5 hours minimum. So we took a ticket. We went across to the park, me and my friends. And then all of a sudden, we were just talking about the back of the dollar bill. We had nothing to talk about. And then I was like, oh, this is real interesting. So then I heard someone say something about, Illuminati, whatever. So I looked that up on the internet, and then I would see a bunch of garbage, a bunch of stuff that wasn't really real. And then I would see some really stuff like, hey, here's some video of these people at a place called Bohemian Grove in front of this 40-foot owl, and they're just like KKK members. So I would say when that happened, when I first got the internet to myself, people like Jordan Maxwell, David Icke, Alex Jones, the Zeitgeist stuff, that was a lot of the stuff that got me into it. But I'm a person that I'm going to only go with what I can absolutely prove. So there's a lot of crap that comes with jumping down this hole too, So someone would say something like, all the world's leaders worship Saturn. And I was like, oh, what the hell? And, I can't find proof of that. That may well be true. But I went with the stuff that I could prove, the Building 7, the 9/11. There is a Bilderberg group. They brag about this. These are the real quotes. These are real things. And I just stuck down that rabbit hole. I've been down there since like 2005. And I just tried to literally, like, when I found out that not only, and 9/11 was probably the biggest thing to me, when I have a lot of empathy, and I also have a lot of pride too. And when I saw these people jumping out of the towers, and then the little Iraqi kids with the tears on their face and their house blown up and their jaws blown off, and then these people, then they brag about what they're doing to you. I can't take that, I was like, then 2007, 2008, I started, well, you're talking so much shit. What are you doing? What are you doing? So then I created a website. Then I started try to have a little meetings. Then I would do little protests and stuff like that. And ever since then, it's kind of been a snowball. Now I do the radio show, and I have the group, and I'm trying to do anything I possibly can peacefully to take these people down and raise awareness, because I mean, what the hell else does there do? I mean, when the government has been caught trafficking children, I mean, you can go play NBA 2K, or you can make sure your tax money isn't trafficking children. So,
yeah, and it's funny because when I went down that rabbit hole, I was big into suspense thriller movies and music and all this stuff, and I got so obsessed with documentaries and podcasts and reading and researching that any free time I had just seemed like a complete waste of time if I wasn't researching this stuff. To me, it's like, okay, if you think this Kevin Spacey thriller suspense movie is good, then you should see the real shit. And it's
perfect example is this girl at my work. She's so annoying. She's like, oh my God, Will, did you see Stranger Things? You have to watch Stranger Things with me. It's so good. And I was like, well, I don't know. I have these books, and I have this documentary list, and I have these podcasts that I listen to. She's like, well, you're just gonna stop watching documentaries for one day. Comes to find out that show, I have had 3 different people tell me no, that show is about freaking MK Ultra. It's a little more interesting than actors playing on a set about some fake MK Ultra. MK Ultra, where the government admittedly for over 20 years sexually, physically, electroshocked abused people, put mind control in their freaking heads. That's a little more interesting. Am I gonna freaking watch a show about this fantasy land where there's MK Ultra, or am I gonna find out that my tax money is being legitimately used to brainwash me, even now with the 2014 reauthorization of the National Defense Authorization Act, where they legitimize domestic propaganda? So you can either watch a freaking show about it, or you can actually do something with your tax money. I mean, it's up to you. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It's the stuff. What the real life stuff is just so much deeper and intertwined and more conspiratorial.
Could you have made up that the rulers of our world meet together? They dress up like KKK members, and they meet in front of this this 40-foot owl. Could you? That's way crazier.
Well, I tell people about
that's way crazier than anything I've seen in a Dan Brown book.
Well, you talk about the CIA drug trafficking. I've told people about having Rick Ross. I've had the real Rick Ross on the show, and I tell people about the Historian. Kill the Messenger is a great movie on it, and those are the type of movies I'm interested in, the ones on a true story. But I tell people about Rick Ross's story about how he was getting drugs super cheap. He didn't know why, and it was because he was getting it from the CIA, and they're using that profit to fund the Contras. He ended up doing time. The government had him doing time for drugs they brought in. Then Gary Webb exposed the fact that
he got killed again too.
Exactly, and then
another person got killed.
Yeah, and then Gary Webb exposed the fact that the government was bringing in these drugs. Helps get Rick Ross out of prison. He goes on every show talking about how he wouldn't commit suicide. Then they find out, he goes on the Montel show. He goes on Alex Jones's show. He goes everywhere. Anybody who's willing to talk to him, he goes on there. Then they find him with 2 gunshots to the head. And then they called it suicide. And the craziest part is where all these drugs flying into Arkansas, Meta, Arkansas, who's the governor, Bill Clinton. It's like, it's so deep rooted and it's so intertwined that it's like, you couldn't write a better suspense movie.
You can't write this shit up. And then the thing is, too, it's like the same people we've been talking about. The Bilderberg Group, created by the British royal family, the Dutch royal family, Joseph Redinger, who was a Nazi, the Rockefeller, and the Rothschild interests. Right now, the same people are running the world. Shell, the Dutch royal family. I don't know if you saw this recently, but I interviewed this guy, Bart Van Wel, out of the Netherlands, and he testified in front of Congress about the pedophilia scandals going on there. They're the progenitors of the Bilderberg Group. This guy, Joris Denmick, abused him, and he was trafficked as a kid. And then you got Queen Beatrix, who was the daughter of the founder of the Netherlands, hanging out with Marina Abramovich. And then he's got like this pasty mannequin. It's the same people from 70 years ago doing the same stuff again. It's like the same, the Clinton Foundation, the Rock, it's all the ssame people all over again.
Oh, yeah, and what about that lady in Haiti that was working for the Bill Clinton?
Laura Silsby.
Yeah, who was working for the Bill Clinton Foundation, who was, in trouble for trafficking kids. And then, just Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what's more obvious than that? All these, Bill Clinton, Trump, they all hang out with this guy. And this guy, he's done time. He's done time. Not much, but he's done some time for fucking trafficking kids and for bringing little girls to that island of his. And so it's crazy. And, I just had Matthew Valentinez, one of the producers of the documentary A Open Secret. It's was my latest podcast I just released. And it's same thing. I mean, he goes through just he's deep rooted in Hollywood and what's going on there. And it's just like, it's such a huge problem, and the documentary title is perfect because it's called The Open Secret because everybody who's involved knows, and it's not this conspiracy. It's literally a open secret.
Yeah, and something I actually want to get your take on, and I found this very interesting, right? Because speaking of an open secret, it was an open secret, as anybody in Hollywood or the media will tell you, that Weinstein was doing all this creepy stuff. Now, that was a open secret in Hollywood. People in Hollywood admit that they know about that. And then you have President Obama. President Obama has the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, Homeland Security, all at his disposal. And he still sent his daughter to intern for him. What the hell is that? Why? What? I don't understand that.
Yeah,
his underage daughter at the time to go work for Weinstein. And if everybody in Hollywood know, how did Obama and the NSA and the CIA and the FBI not know? That's weird to me.
Well, I'm sure they knew, and I'm sure it was one of those things where Weinstein, I mean, having Matthew Valentinez on, and actually just looking at, like, I mean, MK Ultra, similar thing, where you pick and choose kids who are orphans, who come from broken families. You pick and choose, like, kind of weak kids who maybe are too afraid to talk, or you can kind of act like a father figure and get them to come to play along. And so I don't think, the president's daughter would be the perfect, the perfect victim. He probably knows, like, hands off this person. And, I'm sure some of the people that he was harassing was people who needed to get ahead, needed, to get promoted or trying to get, a job or whatnot. So, these predators are really they're really smart with picking and choosing their victims, and I think that's some of the reason why some of them can continue doing this for so long is because they're very good at picking. And it's sad because you look at what happened with Penn State, that's very common where these predators they put together nonprofit organizations. They put together places where kids who come from broken families or are less fortunate can hang out because they want to be around these kids. They want to constantly be around these kids. So from the outside looking in, a lot of times you look at it and like, no, not that guy. He was doing all these good things for kids, but it was actually the equivalent of Michael Jackson's freaking backyard and trying to attract children. It was the reason why they create these organizations is because they're trying to attract children, and it's sad because it really is a sick way of thinking. And it's you look at NAMBLA, you look at like just all these just really there's something weird about pedophilia, and there's definitely more going on. And I think Matthew Valentinas swears that there's going to be many more stories that are going to break very soon, and even bigger stories. And it just seems like every week something new just comes out, and that whole pedogate thing doesn't seem like it's all just a conspiracy nonsense thing anymore. That's just Trump's way to win the election. There's a lot there, and it's been going on forever. It's not a new issue, it's been going on for a long time, and that's, I think, when you talk about issues that are that sensitive and are really, I guess, tug at people's heartstrings, your first reaction is to say, like, that can't be true. That can't be happening, but it's, I have kids. It's scary to think about. And I can understand why people's first reaction is like that. Nobody is that sick. No, but it's like, fuck, man, we went to Iraq war and killed people, innocent people knowingly. And now we're just like, oops, we fucked up. And, so it's like, you think there's really any empathy? You think people actually feel bad about their actions? So it's a scary time, and I think you're doing your radio show. I think it's really important that's why it was cool, and I listen to your show on Facebook. And where can people listen to your show? Is there a podcast version of the show, or is it just local in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Or?
It's there's a website 990wbob.com, and if you go to the past casts, it's just under Demand the Truth, or you can just search Demand the Truth past cast on Google, or 990WBOB, or my name on Google, Will Turbitt, Turbitt. But all my past casts are there. Like you, I'm just a regular guy. I've been fortunate enough to have, some big name guests on my show too. We've had John Kiriakou on the show. We've had Shiva Adiyuri, the guy that, created this incarnation of email. He's got 4 degrees from MIT. I've had lucky enough to have Fritz Springmeier on my show a few times too, and a lot of interesting people. And me and Ricky, we're just proof positive that if you stick with something, you're going to get results, and you're going to have that ripple effect and be able to wake up people. Because what the name of your show is exactly what we need to do, is to get it to that critical mass where we can wake people up. And if anybody wants to check me out too, I've got a rather interesting YouTube channel, but with not that many followers. It's YouTube.com/Demand the Truth. But I have some interesting things there. I have myself at Comet Ping Pong Pizza, and I did an hour streaming live undercover there, some interesting things. Then I also, as I was leaving, there was a protest and then a counter protest, and I caught some kids dancing on tables with the gay flag outside, people hailing Satan. And then I was at the Bilderberg group this year, and I was, screaming at some cops. I have some pretty interesting things. I went to the Rally for the Republic a couple weekends ago here. I was assaulted by Antifa and spat on and all this other stuff. So I have some pretty interesting escapades there. But yeah, my whole job is just to do exactly what you do, and is try to present people with some information, maybe get them thinking in a different way. So they get out of that rut, out of that same old cycle, and hopefully we can get to a place where enough people, like I said, know what's going on, so we can do something about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in our YouTube channel, we always put all the links to the guests' channels, their Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. So if you're looking for more information on Will, I'll have all the links to his Facebook, his Twitter, his YouTube channel, all that stuff, and you can check it out. And so do you know if on iTunes or any podcast apps, if they can find Demand the Truth?
They're not on iTunes yet. I actually didn't even know that I could go on iTunes until just yesterday. I did I was interviewed on the Drew Talks Business podcast. He's like, yeah, you could just get them up. It's super easy. So I plan to do that. Right now, they're all on just 990wbob.com with the Passcast, and they're almost all my episodes are also on YouTube/Demand the Truth. So you can see the videos and all the other escapades there. But yeah, I'm glad that both of you guys have told this to me now, because I didn't realize it wasn't that difficult to get them on there. So that's a whole another platform to try to reach people on.
Yeah, I use Podomatic, but there's a bunch of different companies you can use. And basically, the nice thing is once you sign up on Podomatic, every time you upload there, they send it to every app, every podcast app available, iTunes, everywhere. So literally all you have to do is deal with one website, and they do all the work of sending it everywhere. And your very first episode takes a little longer, but once you get in the system, I think it takes maybe a week or two. But once it's in the system, then literally you upload it. And, you know, like I finished uploading my episode this morning with Matthew Valentinas, and literally, like, you know, I publish it, and within like 10 minutes, people can get it on their phone or iTunes and literally everywhere. So it's in today's world, it just seems like whatever we can do to make it easy to get to, that seems to be the most likely that they'll get their hands on it. You know, so but you can get it on Google Play too, and all that stuff. So yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt. And dude, you're a great speaker. You know your shit. It wouldn't hurt to do a podcast either. You could do it at anytime you have free time, and you know, and talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about, and not have any restrictions. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
No, yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I'm trying to do every avenue, and I'm going to do podcasts now that I realize it's so easy that, you know, you and Drew are telling me this. And my idea is to try, I play the law of averages, you know? So I'm going to try every single pitch I have, every single thing that I can do. And one of those things is going to reach one of those people. So anything I can do that's peaceful, I'm going to definitely do that. Because like you said, I mean, you're an inspiration to me, just, you know, just being a regular guy, and then the people that you talk with. I mean, you know, like you're telling about your wife, you know, like, oh my God, I'm going to have Jesse Ventura on. Like, I'm thinking the same thing when some of these people are like, oh my God, these are people that I look up to. Like, these are my heroes, but they're just regular people like you and I, and they're making a difference. And so can't everybody that's watching and listening right now.
Well, absolutely. And you're inspirational people. I mean, we all are, because anybody who does more than just sit around and talk about possibly doing something and actually does something, they're inspiration to people. And you never know who you're affecting. You know, like we talked about, you never know who you're inspiring. And it's so important. And now with the internet, it's like, it's so easy to do something. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't get a lot of views on YouTube. Podcasts, 99% of people who listen to the show are going to listen to it. They're not going to watch it. But what the fuck? I'll throw it on YouTube, and maybe one person searching Build a Burger or whatever might run into this show and might be exposed to my show, might be exposed to your show. And even if it's just one person, to me, it's worth uploading, and it's worth keeping the YouTube channel going. So it's same thing, like as many avenues as I can put it out, the best, you know, and more likely people are going to run into it. So yeah, same philosophy, same idea. Put it out there and when it comes down to podcasting, it's super easy. You can put all your past shows up on, you know, on Podomatic, and I think like some of the other ones like Libsyn or something like that. That's another one that's really popular. And you know, that one website will do all the work once you upload your artwork, upload your info and all that stuff, and then it's literally, I could download any podcast app and I can find Demand the Truth. And
wow.
So it's super easy, and it's worth doing, and hopefully soon enough I can subscribe on my phone to Demand the Truth or some type of podcast you do. And if you need help with anything, if you need contact information for anybody, if you need you know, suggestions for guests, if you need you know, any advice on how to upload it or whatever, software or whatever, let me know. I'll help you with anything I can help you with. And you live way too close to not hook up at some time, so we'll definitely have to hook up for some drinks soon enough. I'll have to drive up there.
Hey, man, hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, and thank you. And if you need me for anything, man, just let me know. I know I probably can't be of too much usefulness, but
hey,
I'm really good on the kazoo if you have anything going on. But yeah, seriously, man, don't hesitate. And thank you so much for just everything that you're doing and what you've taught me already today. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, same here. Thanks for doing what you're doing. It's awesome that I love meeting like-minded people, and we're all a part of this this wave, this ripple. We're all doing our part. When I meet people like you, when I meet people like Hunter Motts or Richard Grove or James Corbett or whoever, and everybody who, and even if we all have maybe different opinions, slightly different opinions, slightly different perspectives, but we're all trying to reach the same goal of trying to change people's perspectives and getting people to challenge the way they think and the way they look at the world. And so we're all on the same team, and I think we're all reaching out to the same goal, and we're all doing our part, and hopefully if we keep it up, I think hopefully the future does look bright. I think because I think you can only fight the truth for so long, and you can only how long can they stop the internet, because the internet is right now, it is anarchy. It's the if you want an anarchy world, I mean, it's anarchy where you can look up anything, you have no restrictions, and I think it's really important to keep things the way it is, where we can't have this conversation. Nobody, I mean, YouTube now, you're seeing all these issues with restrictions on even James Corbett recently has been having issues with some of their videos. And that's scary, because the internet really is the one place where you can look up, no matter how controversial the issue, no matter how outside the box the topic, you can look it up. And if they put restrictions on that, then we're really fucked. But for the time being, we can do what we want. We can talk about what we want. We can talk about controversial issues, and as long as we can do it, we're going to keep doing it, and hopefully change lives and perspectives in the process. So. Thank you so much, Will. I'll put all the links and in the show notes, and let everybody know where they can find you, and hopefully have you on again to talk about some current events, because there always seems like there's something going on. So there's always stuff to talk about. So I'll hopefully have you on in the near future.
Awesome, and I'd love to get you on my show in the new year. And again, very much appreciate you giving me this platform. Yeah,
absolutely. Anytime you want me on, let me know. I'm an expert in nothing and know a little bit about everything, so I can definitely just rant on a couple of things. But much like yourself, I'm intrigued in so many different topics that it's hard to be an expert in any one field, But that's the best way of thinking, I think somebody who knows a little bit about a lot of things is much more interesting than somebody who knows a lot about one thing. So I think it's not a bad thing to go down all these avenues and kind of broaden your perspective. So thanks again, Will. I know it's Friday night, so you probably want to go out and sling some dick or do whatever a young, good-looking lad like you does. So have fun, and thanks again. I really appreciate your time, and have you on in the near future. And keep up the great work. You really, like I said, you never know who you're reaching. I mean, you reached me, and I'm sure you're reaching people all over the world, and the podcast. That's the other thing. When you have a podcast, this podcast is downloaded literally all over the world, every continent, Sweden, Egypt. I mean, so, it's just the ability to just reach people. I mean, we're talking about countries that, when you're talking about foreign policy and serious, I mean, sometimes it's amazing that I'm talking about countries that I've never been to, and it's actually being downloaded in those countries. So it's pretty insane. So it's cool to have this ability to do this. So yourself, you're doing it now. You're going to reach people, and you're reaching people with your show. So hopefully we can keep it up, and like I said, we can all help each other. And that's the cool thing about this world too. Not to hold you up any longer, because I do go on these long rants at times, but the beautiful thing about this movement is that it's not a competition. We're all out to help each other, and we're all so willing to help each other out. And if you need advice, and I've helped Robbie Martin book Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson on his show. I helped Jennifer Brimey, who does the Congressional Dish podcast. I don't know if you've heard that podcast. It's a really good podcast. Get Jack Abramoff on her show, and it's just like we all help each other out, and it's like there's no competition. It's like, oh yeah, I can help you. I can see if I still have their email address. I can see if I still have their contact information. And it's not like, well, I had them, I don't want people to go listen to him. It's like it's cool, and we're all on the same team, and there's no ego, and there's no no selfishness, getting in the way of helping get this information. I think the most important thing is just helping change lives and perspectives, and try to get this information out there, and starting a ripple. And it doesn't matter who starts it, if it's you, if it's me, if it's Alex Jones. I mean, I know he gets a lot of shit, and rightfully so at times, but he was a part of opening a lot of people's eyes, including myself. 9/11 Road to Tyranny was one of the first documentaries that I'm like, holy shit, you know, and you know, so I think that all these people are important in just changing people's perspectives. So yeah, I know you're thanking me, but I can't thank you enough either, because we're all a part of this, and we're all doing our part, and I think it's really, really important for people like yourself and myself who to share our experiences with people and let people see that, hey, we can get up and we can change lives and we can do something. And then you'll be amazed with the people that you end up talking to. I mean, talking to a retired CIA agent like John Kiriakou, I mean, like you said, you're just a regular dude, you know, and you're talking about somebody who has legit, you know, resume, and he's, you know, so, and that could be anybody listening to this show, that they could have a podcast and eventually have some big name guests on it. So it's really important. It doesn't matter if one person listens or a million people listen. Even if it's just one person listening, to me it's worth it. So it's important. So thanks again, Will. And you know, if you have any final words, anything you want to promote, anything coming up, or
no, I mean, just check out my show, and I would just implore people to make time to do something, even if it's just share that information. Make time. I can't say that enough. Make time to do something, even if it's just contacting your neighbors. So do something, people, please. Absolutely,
absolutely. Thanks, Will, and we'll keep in touch.
All right, thanks again, Ricky. Have a good night, brother.
You too. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.
Believe in the ripple effect.